Welcome back to Sovereign Alchemy. I'm Cindy Carter, and this is episode 3 of the 7 Phases of Sovereignty series. There's 3 out of 25 episodes. And this is the last week that we'll spend in phase 1, the calcination, the fire. We have been in the fire. We covered a lot of ground in the fire. And in episode 1, we named the fire. We talked about what calcination was and what it looks and feels like, how the body automatically responds when awareness first activates in you. And then in episode 2, we looked at what's been running us without our permission. You know, the programs, the unconsciousness, the inherited patterns, the automatic responses that our body goes through that we never consciously chose. And today, we talk about what it actually takes to keep looking. Because seeing clearly sounds really simple, and it's not really simple. It really isn't. I mean, I don't want to tell you that any of these things are easy. They're just what is actually happening right now, from your cellular body to the consciousness of you. Like however long you navigate each phase is proper. Because this is really just a peace mission for you and the universe. So, what does seeing clearly really look like? It's a thing about awareness, and it's the first flash of awareness that comes, and that's the initial moment of calcination. And when that moment happens, it can be exhilarating or even adrenaline filled, but it is wide open. Your senses become wide open because something cracked open in you. Because you see something that you couldn't see before. It kind of feels exciting for a minute, and then there's a relief. Like, whoa, a recognition, oh. And the exhilaration kind of fades, and then you go, oh. That's what's been happening. And what's left is the sustained work of continuing to look at that thing and not turning away. Not just at the comfortable awarenesses or just the patterns that feel safe for you to witness that come into clarity, but at the ones that are harder to be with, like maybe in the past, you may have hurt people that when you were running your programs unconsciously. Maybe the fear of you wielding something that looks like strength, but it really came from fear. Or the times you chose comfort over the truth. When you know something's not right, but you chose to sweep it under the rug. This is where the real courage lives, not in the first flash of awareness, but in the willingness to keep the lights on. You know, after the initial excitement is worn off from it. Can you look at it clearly? Can you describe courage? To look at it in real life, because it looks like sitting with a realization that makes you uncomfortable. And it's not immediately for you to reach for something to make it go away. This is the moment that you don't grab the phone. You don't grab the food. You don't go to the next podcast or the next new age spiritual concept that lets you skip over all that shit, because spiritual bypass is, alive and well these days. Or just have the courage to sit with it. Let it be true, whatever it is. It could look like, too, that you've been quite bossy in the past, or you used to cut people off when they speak, and you suddenly realize it in mid-sentence. Oh, it's me. Or it looks like seeing a pattern in your relationships and admitting, kind of quietly and honestly that you might have been the common denominator all along. Oh, it's me. Not, oh, it's me with self-punishment, but, not with shame either. but just with some clean, honest clarity of somebody who's decided that the truth is kind of more useful in their life than the story that their brain's been telling them. And it might also look like, this one's important, seeing clearly sometimes means recognizing what was done to you and clearly seeing the unjust, the unhealthy, the unthinkable. Just seeing it, not staying there, not pitching a tent there in the hood, in the victimhood, but to look at it honestly and say, that happened to me. It did affect me, but it did shape me. And I'm now conscious enough to decide what I want to do with that. And that's not a weakness. This is one of the bravest things a human being can do. So here's what's happening in the body when you start seeing clearly. The brain has a really interesting relationship with the truth. Because there's this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, and it's responsible for clear thinking and your honest assessment of stuff and your conscious decision making. And then there's this other part, the limbic system, and it's responsible for all your emotional reactions. It's threat detection, and it's like protecting the ego. It's like danger, danger, Will Robinson. When something's threatening your self-image and it comes into awareness, the limbic system fires off first. And you may not even have a second to think about it. But it tries to protect you from all this discomfort that could be happening because you're seeing clearly. You might get defensive, or might try to rationalize it, or justify it, or blame somebody. And that's just your brain trying to keep you from a truth that it thinks might be dangerous to the ego. But the research does show that when you practice sitting with some uncomfortable truths, you're building a capacity to see clearly without flinching. And we're literally strengthening the prefrontal cortex's ability to regulate this crazy limbic response. And the neuroscientists, they call this emotional regulation. And at the cellular level, every time you stay present with something that's a difficult truth, instead of running from it, you are really rewiring. Slowly and steadily, but permanently rewiring. It's the courage to see clearly. It's not a spiritual virtue or a philosophy or an attainment. It's a dang neurological practice with measurable results with people in lab coats. So guess what? You've been through the fire and you showed up. Thank you. That's 3 weeks of fire. 3 weeks that we've been looking at things that most people spend a lifetime avoiding. You may think it's nothing, but it's actually everything, because the courage it takes to stay awake through calcination, to keep looking when every part of you wants to look away, that's courage, and it becomes part of the foundation. So you're not really the same person as the one that pressed play on episode 1. Something in you already shifted, because awareness does that. I'm sure some situations came to mind as we went through each episode. That simple awareness and your ability to stay with it works at higher levels. You may not be able to name it, and you may not have evidence of it, but your cells know about it. Your nervous system sure knows about it, and you didn't even have to take notes. Your subconscious took it all in. This is the fire. It did its work, and all you had to do was show up for it. That's sovereignty beginning to take shape, not as a concept, not as something you read in a book. It's something that you're actually becoming. Because awareness isn't localized in your consciousness. You have a higher consciousness that's aligning with you, trying to line with you. But your intelligent consciousness is, waiting on your simple awareness. Things work out when higher levels of consciousness are aware of your awareness. Believe me. So let's pull back and look at this phase, because you're right now in a really extremely uncomfortable world, and we're seeing it now with a lot of clarity. And collectively, also, people are seeing that we have, entire systems designed to keep things totally unclear. Can't see through it. Don't know which way's up. It's from our programmed existence of only having 10% of our conscious mind operating. So we have a complex language with wordy words that obscures your simple truths. All these narratives and scripts that protect those in power by keeping people ultimately confused. So seeing clearly on a collective consciousness is the same as personally. We can't flinch at the atrocities, at the deceit, at the scheduled demise. We've got to see it clearly, with conscious clarity, the courage to show up. And it's not just a personal act, it's a quiet form of resistance. Every person who chooses to look honestly at their own patterns, to stop blaming, to stop bypassing, stop sweeping stuff under the rug, you're adding something to the collective field, and this is genuinely rare right now. Clarity, grounded, honest, sovereign clarity. The world doesn't need more noise or more information to distract us. It needs more people who've done the work of seeing clearly, reducing the noise. Individually, of seeing your own stuff and bringing that courage of seeing into your families, into your conversations, into your workplace, your communities, into your everyday. And that is you. That's what these 3 weeks have been building in the calcination. Because right now we're to be doing, not waiting on anything. New life is here. So next week we move into phase 2. In Alchemy, it's called Dissolution. And if we look at ourselves, it's about emotional permission. After the fire comes the water to put out the fire. And so after the burning away comes a softening. And this is hard for a lot of people. This next phase is tender. It asks something totally different of you. Not the courage to look, but the permission to feel. So come ready for that one. It's a beautiful one. So take a breath and feel your feet and welcome back. I thank you for staying sovereign and see you on the path.